ለመማር ወደ ትምህርት ተቋም መሄድ ግድ አይደለም።
ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
ራሳችሁን ከኮሮና ቫይረስ ወረርሽኝ እየጠበቃችሁ በቤታችሁ ወይም በተመቻችሁ ቦታ
በኢንተርኔት አማካኝነት በኦንላይን ትምህርታችሁን መከታተል ይቻላል።
ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና
ከእንግሊዙ ኢንስቲትዩት ኦፍ ኮመርሻል ማኔጅመንት ICM ጋር በመተባበር የሚሰጡ ትምህርቶችን ተከታትላችሁ በ6 ወር ጊዜ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተቀባይነት ያለውን የስልጠና ማስረጃ ባለቤት መሆን ይቻላል።
ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና ባገኘንባቸው የፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን እና የሆስተስ ስልጠናም በምዝገባ ላይ ነን።
ጥያቄና መልስ፣ የክፍል ስራዎች ብሎም ፈተና መፈተን ክፍል ውስጥ እንዳላችሁ አይነት
ልምድ ባላቸው መምህራን እየተማራችሁ
በኦንላይን ባላችሁበት ቦታ
አድራሻ ከ22 ማዞሪያ ወደ ሾላ ገበያ በሚወስደው መንገድ 150 ሜትር ገባ ብሎ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ
ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, teacher.
Fine. Okay, today we'll see the last chapter of the course, which is dividend policy. Once we decide our investment area and source of finance, both long-term and short-term, and if there is profit, we have to decide on the profit of the organization. We have to decide how much to give to investors in the form of dividend and how much to retain. This is what we call it dividend policy. And there are different tiers of dividend. We'll see those tiers in this chapter. So these are the contents to be covered. The dividend policy, tiers of investor preferences, signaling theory, residual model, dividend reinvestment plan or DRIP, stock dividend, stock split, and stock repurchase. These are the concepts that we will cover in this chapter. The dividend, as a manager, business managers in consultation with financial managers must decide the proper mix between the amount of retained earning and the amount of dividend. So we have to set optimal dividend balance. Optimal dividend balance. So the optimal dividend policy should maximize price. The optimal dividend is amount of dividend that will maximize the price of firm's stock, which is the ultimate objective. Wealth maximization. Wealth maximization will be reflected on share price. So our dividend decision must maximize our share price. So this is a formula. Price of our share is equals with dividend 1 or dividend in the coming period divided by cost of equity minus gross. Will give us price of the share. So I have to maximize price. If we are interested to increase dividend or D1, if we are interested to increase dividend in the coming period, dividend will increase. Dividend will increase, so there is upward pressure on price. So there will be increase in price if we increase dividend. On the other side, if we increase dividend, firm growth will decline because we are paying cash in the form of dividend. So the company's investment will decline, so growth will decline. And there will be downward pressure. So increasing dividend may lead to increase in price. At the same time, since there is decreasing growth, there will be decrease in price. So this is difficult decision. So the problem is, what is the correct balance between dividend and retained earning? This is dividend decision. So we have to set dividend policy. And what is our dividend policy? We have to be clear with this. It is a decision to pay out earnings versus retaining. That means if there is net income in the period we have to decide how much to retain from that net income and how much to pay to shareholders in the form of dividend. Mix between retained earning and dividend policy. And we have to answer these questions. The amount of dividend payment, is it high or low? High payout or low payout? Which one will maximize our share price? As I've seen previously, price, P naught is a function of dividend one, or dividend is the coming period, divided by cost of equity minus growth. If we pay high dividend, there will be increase in D1 and there will be increase in demand for our company share in the market. The price will increase. At the same time, since there is decrease in growth, there will be decrease in price. If we pay low dividend, we are retaining more cash. So there is financial resource and we can invest that resource. So there will be increase in growth. If we pay lower dividend, there will be more retained earning and more growth. It will have positive effect too. So what must be our dividend? Is that high or low? We have to answer this question. And it is not straightforward. The answer is not straightforward. And the other question that we have to address is the pattern of dividend. Is that stable or irregular? For example, paying dividend per share of 20% in this year, and 30% in the coming, and 15% in the third year. Irregular dividend. Or paying stable dividend. For example, if it is 15% in this year, paying some higher dividend, constant dividend growth, simply paying stable dividend. Which one will maximize share price? So we have to answer this. And how frequency of dividend payment. The frequency of dividend payment. How frequent? Is that yearly? Usually the dividend payment is yearly, or sorry, every 2 years, or after that. Simply the dividend payment period must be clear, the frequency of payment, because it will have effect on our company's share price. And do we announce the policy? Do we announce our dividend policy? Because if we are announcing our company's dividend policy, we are informing market participants about our dividend. So if we are paying high dividend, investors may like it or may dislike it. If we are paying lower dividend, some will like it, some may dislike it. So is it appropriate to announce our dividend policy? This is also a big question that we have to answer. So at the time of setting this dividend policy, we have to address these questions. And there are three known theories under dividend. Do investors prefer high or low payout? To answer this question, different theories say different things. For example, dividend irrelevance theory, actually this is consistent with theory, Franco Modigliani and Dr. Miller. This theories, dividend irrelevant theory, says that whatever the amount of dividend paid to investors will not have effect on share price. So the amount of dividend payment is irrelevant for share price. This is consistent with MM1, the first proposition under capital structure theory. You remember capital structure theory, the first proposition says that whatever the source of finance will not have effect on cost of capital and share price. And the same is true for dividend. The amount of dividend payment is irrelevant. So we can pay 100% dividend, or we can avoid dividend. We can have zero dividend and we can retain 100%. This is what dividend irrelevant theory says. We'll have detailed discussion about this. There is also birds in the hand theory. This theory says that investors prefer high payout. So our company must pay higher dividend to maximize share price, according to birds in the hand theory. Tax preference theory says that better to pay low dividend to maximize share price. So different theories say different things. And the main thing that you have to know is their argument and the applicability in our country's context. Let's see dividend irrelevance theory and the argument. This theory says that investors are indifferent between dividend and retained earnings. They are indifferent. For example, if there is 10 million profit, net profit in the period, if we're in line with this irrelevant theory, we can pay 10 million dividend, or we can retain this 10 million and we can have zero dividend. It will not have effect on share price, according to dividend irrelevance theory. The argument is investors or shareholders will have share. They will have share. If they want cash, they can sell that share. So getting dividend is not their concern. Getting dividend is getting cash. If investors are interested to get cash, they can easily sell their share. And if they do not want cash, they can use dividends to buy stock. Even if they can receive cash in the form of dividend, they will reinvest that in the company's share. So getting dividend is not their concern, according to this theory. MM, as I have said previously, MM supports this irrelevance view. So this theory is based on some unrealistic assumptions, if you remember, like no tax, no brokerage cost, and the likes. So it needs empirical test. By the way, empirical result or research to date shows these contradictions. So the literature is not yet settled. That's why we're talking about all these theories. Some studies show that dividend is irrelevant. Some shows that dividend is relevant. Higher dividend will maximize share price. Some showed that lower dividend will maximize share price. So the literature is not yet settled. That's why we're discussing these all theories. The second theory is birds in the hand theory. Birds in the hand. This theory says that one bird in the hand is better than two birds in the bush. So getting cash is good for investors. So getting cash immediately in the form of dividends, that means. So investors think dividends are less risky than potential future capital gain, hence they like dividends. If the company is paying dividend, investors are getting cash frequently. If the company is not paying a dividend, investors will not receive cash today, but in the future there will be capital gain. But investors like dividend today instead of capital gain. If so, investors would value high payout firms more highly. That is, high payout would result in high price of the share. So according to birds in the hand theory, to maximize our share price, we have to pay higher dividend. This is the second theory. The third theory, tax preference theory. Tax preference theory. Tax preference theory says that to maximize share price, you have to pay lower dividend. Lower dividend, so you have to retain more. Now, retained earnings leads to long-term capital gain. If the company is retaining more income instead of paying dividend, there will be reinvestment, and in the future, there will be growth in the firm and capital gain will increase, which are taxed at lower rate. In some countries, there may not be capital gain tax. Even if there is capital gain tax, the tax rate on capital gain compared with the tax rate on dividend. Capital gain tax is usually lower than tax on dividend. So that is advantage for investors. So investors prefer lower dividend and want more capital gain because the tax on capital gain is lower than the tax on dividend. So investors prefer lower dividend. So this could cause investors to prefer firms with low payout. Firms with low payout. So if there is lower dividend payout, there will be increase in share price. So tax preference and birds in the hand theory says different issues. Medicine hand, to maximize share price, pay higher dividend. Tax preference, to maximize share price, pay lower dividend. So these are theories. So this is a summary. Relevance theory, any payout is okay. Maybe 100% retained earning, maybe 100% dividend, maybe 10% or 20% dividend. Any payout is okay. Birds in the hand, high payout. High dividend payout at least. Tax preference, low dividend payout. Which theory, if any, is correct, do you think? Which theory is logical? Is there anyone who can answer this question? Which theory, if there is logical for you, at least? If you are a manager, if you are in a position to decide the amount of dividend payment, and your decision criteria is maximizing share price. Unfortunately, there is no financial market in the country, in our country. That's why this theory seems irrelevant. But if there is financial market, our goal must be to maximize company share price. That means. So which theory do you think is appropriate to maximize share price?
Bird in hand.
Bird is in the hand. That means if you are in a position, you will say higher dividend.
Yeah, because we have to reinvest the capital or the liquidity.
Oh, if you are following this theory, you are paying more dividend and you will have lower cash in your company because you are paying more cash to shareholders. So reinvestment will decline.
Reinvestment decline.
So if Berdesen's theory says that from your annual net income, you have to pay more dividend to shareholders. So if you are paying dividend, there is cash outflow. You are paying cash to shareholders. So the company will have lower cash. Now, do you think this will help to maximize share price? Actually, it depends on your argument. Both are applicable. Both theories, the literature shows that both theories are still there practically. So the choice of theory depends on your argument. There is no true theory from this. Sometimes paying higher dividend may be good because, for example, in our country, most of investors prefer dividend. So setting higher dividend may be good. So we have to consider our clients. Sometimes our clients may be youngsters or at early age of their career. Sometimes our investor group may be aging group. Or sometimes, sorry, you can come in. Is there any question?
Hello.
Yes.
When we have to pay the higher pay, we have to get higher profit. That is in the dividend we have to get by the percent. Example, Ira constructs a road. At that time, there are different companies to give dividend funds for the who have their farmlands and the houses in the town, like that.
Oh, that is not dividend. Dividend means if you are managing a business organization, assume a business organization, its objective is profit. So from the annual profit, you have to decide how much to distribute to owners of that company. If Ethiopian Road Authority paying for property owners and the likes, that's not dividend.
Okay.
Correctly?
Yes. What is that?
Yes.
It's compensation.
Compensation, maybe. Yeah.
The compensation. Yeah.
You have to consider yourselves as a manager of a business organization, and the objective of a business organization is maximizing wealth of shareholders. Am I clear?
Yes.
So assume you are an employee of a business organization. And we are talking about how we can deal with the annual profit of a business organization. Is that appropriate to retain more, or is that appropriate to pay more from our net income, annual net income, payment to shareholders, and retaining in the business? These are options. So in line with this, which theory do you think is appropriate? Getachew?
Mine is question, Doctor.
Sorry?
Mine is question.
Oh, your voice is not clear.
Or I'm sorry. Mine is question, Doctor.
Okay.
So, payment of dividend, is that only cash payment, or we can divide? No, we can pay dividends in the form of shares.
It is possible. We'll discuss about that. It is possible
right.
to pay in the form of shares.
So, in this case, we need to consider also other factors. So, as you said, both theories may work.
May work. Even though it is in the form of dividend,
Yeah.
paying higher and paying lower is the same.
Okay.
Actually, dividends in the form of shares will have its own advantage and disadvantage. We'll discuss about that later. We'll discuss. And here, let's assume that the dividend is in the form of cash. Cash dividend. And if you are in a position to decide, what will be your decision? Will you pay higher dividend or lower dividend to maximize your company's share price?
Sir.
Okay.
I'm Seleshi. Can I proceed?
Yes.
Yeah. It depends on the objective of the investors. If the investors are with long-term objective, they would like to maximize their share price through capitalization, through investment, through widening their market share. In such case, they will prefer tax preference. On the other hand, if the shareholder interest is in short-term payment to get the whatever proceed obtained from the investment, they will prefer the high dividend, the bird in the hand. Sometimes in our country, companies pay high dividend early in order to motivate other persons to invest in shareholding. Later on, they will reduce the amount.
Okay, are you there? Seleshi, I can't hear you. Hello? I think we lost the connection. So, okay. Which business? Nuriye, I'm not clear with your question. I think you have to be clear with what financial management is. It is management in business organizations. When you say business organizations, the objective is profit and ultimately maximizing wealth. In governmental entities, the objective is different. And the accounting and financial management is different. It is another issue. So the public finance issue, not covered in this course. So is there another question? Is there any question? Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
What is the bonus? We have to integrate it with the dividend, the bonus, which company to get a profit. After that, it gives a bonus for its employers.
Okay, that is bonus. Bonus is another issue.
Yeah, there is no integration between them.
Yes.
Zero B. Bonus is for motivation purpose. To align the interest of employees with the interest of the organization, bonus plan will be there. Assume a corporation. For example, there are private banks in our country. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
There are private banks and thousands of owners are there, or shareholders, sorry.
Yeah, shareholders.
Shareholders are there. So shareholders will not involve in the management process.
Yes.
So shareholders will assign board of directors, right?
Board of directors. Yeah.
Under the board, the structure will be designed. So starting from the board,
Auditors and so on. Yeah.
auditors are there and other directors will be there. Simply, both are managers of the organization. So managers are agents for shareholders. Am I clear?
Yeah. Yeah.
They are agents. So managers must act in line with the best interest of shareholders.
Maximize the profit or no?
So to maximize wealth of shareholders. Motivate those managers and other employees to work in line with shareholders' interests. Those bonus and other issues will be designed. Bonus plan will be designed. When you say dividend, it is for shareholders, not for managers.
Thank you.
Is that clear?
Yeah. 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 This is good.
Okay, if you have another question.
Hello,
Yes.
sir. I have one question.
Okay.
When we say dividend, it is given for the stockholders or the employee?
Stockholders or shareholders. Dividend is for owners of the company. And sometimes there is dividend for preferred shareholders. I hope we have seen this in the first chapter, I think. So dividend is simply for shareholders.
Okay.
Getachew, if you have any question, you can come in. You can continue, Getachew. Hand is raised. You have to unmute.
Sorry, yeah, unmute. Sorry. So I want to ask the relationship between return on investment or dividend yield and dividend itself.
Sorry.
For
return on investment.
Return on investment. The relationship between return on investment or and the dividend, so that I can make another arguments before making any payment.
Okay, a return on investment or ROI, you can call it. Actually, there are different formulas. It is net income divided by total investment, and the total investment is usually measured by the total asset. So the total investment is the total asset of the organization. Cash is there, buildings, machineries, and others. Total assets will be there. So net income divided by total asset will give us return on investment. Dividend means there is net income. From that net income, some portion must be retained. Retained is a business for expansion purpose. Some portion must be paid to shareholders. That is dividend.
Okay.
This is a relationship. The return on investment is the total income compared with the total investment. Dividend means portion of net income paid to shareholders. You can continue your argument. Not yet clear? Is that clear? Sorry. So what was your argument? Or is that all?
Sir, there is a network problem, that's why.
I think so. Okay, if you have another question. Okay, not now, you can continue.
Thank you, Doctor. I wrote it on the chat, but you didn't see it, I think. Is there any dividend rather than cash?
Yes, there will be stock dividend. It was already asked, that's why I ignored this question. I thought it was before the question. This question was asked just before around 5 minutes or others. So there is the stock dividend. There is stock dividend in addition to cash dividend, and we'll have discussion on this in this chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let's continue. We have seen 3 theories: birds in the hand theory, irrelevance theory, and tax preference theory. If we put the payout, the amount of or the percentage of dividend compared with the total income in the x-axis, and the stock price, which is our decision criteria. Our objective as a manager is to maximize share price. And our concern here in dividend decision is how much to pay, or the percentage of dividend payment to maximize share price. Irrelevance theory says that whatever the amount of dividend is, the share price will be constant, a straight line, the blue one, this one. Irrelevance. Birds in the hand theory says that to maximize share price, we have to increase payout. If we are increasing payout, the share price would increase. Tax preference theory says that to maximize share price, you have to pay lower dividend. At lower point of dividend, price is high. If we are increasing the amount of dividend payment, share price will decline, according to tax preference. So this is just a graphical representation of the theories. When you see the cost of capital and dividend payout, according to these theories. Cost of capital. If the company is risky, the cost of capital will be high. Now, you are clear with cost of capital. For example, if the company is risky, and if the company is interested to access finance from banks, the interest rate will be high because that company is risky. So lenders must be compensated for taking risk. So if we are increasing payout, according to birds in the hand theory, the cost of capital will be low. If we are increasing payout, the cost of capital will be low. The cost of capital. For tax preference theory, the theory says that we have to pay lower dividend to maximize share price. If we are paying higher dividend, the cost will be high. The cost is increasing. The exact reverse. Irrelevance, there is no effect. So different theories say different things about the price, the share price, and the cost of capital. So which theory is most correct? Empirical testing has not yet determined the appropriate dividend theory or policy. The empirical test has not been able to determine which theory is, if any, is correct. So managers use judgment when setting dividend policy. So we should have our own judgment. And analysis is used, but must be applied with judgment. We should have our own analysis. We have to understand the market, the economic condition, our investors' intention, and different issues. Both macro and micro economic issues must be considered at the time of setting our dividend policy. And we have to see our clientele effect. Clientele effect. We have already different groups of investors in our company, or shareholders. We call these shareholders or investors clienteles. They prefer different dividend policies, and those investors are attracted because of the firm's past dividend policy. We have to know this. existing investors invest in our company because they are attracted with our dividend policy, previous dividend policy. So clientele effect indicates that investors will tend to be attracted to companies that have dividend policy consistent with their objective. So the clientele effect is a tendency of a firm to attract the type of investor who likes its dividend policy. And if we are interested to change our dividend policy, taxes, brokerage costs hurt investors, because if we are changing our dividend policy, investors must sell our company share and must invest in another company, because initially they are attracted because our dividend policy was consistent with their objective. Now, if we are changing our dividend policy, they will sell our company share. At the time of selling, there will be tax and there will be brokerage cost. So changing dividend policy will affect investors, so because there is switching cost. So we have to consider this before changing our dividend policy. And another issue that I have to know is the information content and signaling hypothesis. We have seen signaling theory in case of capital structure theory. This signaling hypothesis is also applicable in dividend policy too. The management will decide the amount of dividend payment and the amount of retention. So management will have better information compared with outsiders. So the decision by managers will signal information to outsiders. So signaling hypothesis says that investors regard dividend change as signal of management's earning forecast. If the management is changing dividend, if there is increase in dividend amount compared with the previous one, or decreasing dividend amount compared with the previous one, outsiders will have their own interpretation, because I believe that investors have better information than outsiders. Okay, who is the decision maker, manager or board? Board is part of managers, or part of management. When we say management, we are referring parties starting from the board. The board is also a management group. This is not a nice question. But when you say management, it includes the board. So the higher level of management is the board. Okay, managers had to cut dividends. So will not raise dividends unless they think raising the dividend is suitable. So investors view dividend increase as signals of management's view of the future. So the management, the board, will decide the amount of dividend. So this decision will be understood by investors, because investors believe that managers have better information and they decide the amount of dividend based on their future expectation. So therefore, a stock price increase at the time of dividend increase could reflect higher expectation for future earning per share. So if there is increase in dividend amount, that increase will be understood by investors as positive. They will expect higher earning per share in the future. Paying lower dividend will have negative signal. So we have to be careful. If we are increasing or decreasing the dividend amount, we are transmitting information to external parties. Cutting dividend is not advisable in the first place. So Nathaniel, you can ask if you have any question. Nathaniel followed by Tasfakiros. Okay, Nathaniel, continue.
I already ቅድም የጠየቁት ነው sir.
Okay, it's okay. Tasfakiros, you can continue.
In case of the decision makers for dividend, yes, I have had an information regarding this management or the super management, meaning the top management decides and looking into the business activity within the organization, the board of directors approves or disapproves it. I know I have had this information. Can we say they are the, in case of the decision making for dividend, for Nathaniel's question, I have had an information which says that the top managements recommend some kind of dividend, and the board of directors approves, or they can even couldn't even disapprove it, meaning they will have an independent kind of review in the organization's performance.
The board is independent.
Yeah, independently they will look into the operations.
Your connection is poor, I think.
Okay, is that poor? I'm so sorry.
Comment.
How about
when
now?
you say management? Yeah, it is clear now, I think.
Okay. The top management might recommend some kind of amount, some amount, yeah, dividends, but the top management's recommendation need to be approved by the board of directors, I think.
The board. Yes,
the board of directors,
is part of the management. Yes,
can we say that?
You are right.
Can we say they are part of that because the board of directors are really accountable, or they will have an independent overlook in the organization's performance?
Yeah.
They might approve it. Yeah, they are agents for the shareholders. Thank you very much.
Yes.
For this reason, can we say they both decide together? This is the most decisive. The most decisive humans are the board of directors, as to me, but the top management can recommend some kind of dividends.
Yeah, based on their investment plan, because the managers or executives, starting from the CEO, they know better about the operation, and they know what is going to happen in the coming periods. They know the amount of finance needed for expansion purpose and others. So they have to recommend, but the decision will be by the top management team, that is the board. You are right. But in financial audit, when you say management, it includes the board. Board is part of the management. Okay, another two hands. ጌታቸው
ኤጀንሲ ቲዮሪን እዚህ ላይ አሁን የጓደኞቼ አም ሶሪ ወደ አማርኛው ወሰድኩት። ኤጀንሲ ቲዮሪ መጀመሪያ ላይ እንዳስተማርከን በስቴክሆልደሮች ሳይዱነን አይደለም፣ እንደው ቦርዱ በመሐከላቸው ስላለ ነው እንጂ ተመሳሳይ አቅጣጫ ይዛሉ ብሎ ማሰብ ትንሽ ያስቸግራል። በጣም ኢንተረስትድ ስለሆንኩኝ ነው በተደጋጋሚ የምጠይቅ ዶክተር። የኤጀንሲ ቲዮሪ አሁን ጓደኞቻችን አሁን ያነሱት የኤጀንሲ ቲዮሪን ከዲቪደንድ አንፃር እንዴት ይታያል? ምክንያቱም የሼር ሆልደሮችን እነሱ ሼራቸው እንዲያርግ ሊፈልጉ ይችላሉ፣ ግን ማናጀሮቹ የኤጀንቶቹ ቢሄቨር ግን አፌክት የሚደረገው በመጣው ኢርኒንግ ነው። አመታዊም ይሁን በተወሰነ ጊዜ የሚመጣው ኢርኒንግ ቶታል ኢርኒንግ የነሱም ቢሄቨር አፌክት ያደርጋል። በዛ ውስጥ የራሳቸው የሆነ ኢንተረስት አላቸው። ሶ ኤጀንሲ ቲዮሪን ከዲቪደንድ ፖሊሲ
ሶሪ ፎር ዘ ኢንተራፕሽን የትኛው ግሩፕ ነው ኢንትረስት አላቸው ያልከኛ?
ኤጀንቶቹ
ኦኬ
ኤጀንቶቹ አሁን ከኤጀንቶቹ አንፃር ነው። እንደ ማናጀር አሁን ማናጀር ቢሆን እኔ እንደ ኤጀንቱኜ ነው ይሄንን ውሳኔ የሚወስነው፣ ግን የራሴ የሆነ ኢንተረስት አለኝ። የኔም ቢሄቨር አፌክት ያደርጋል የመጣው ኢርኒንግ እና በዲቪደንድ መልክ መከፈል ያለ ሳንድዊች ይሆናል በውሳኔው መካከል። አም ሶሪ ቴንክ ዩ
yes you are right እሱን ለመከላከል by the way it's interesting የኤጀንሲ ቲዮሪ ቦርድ የሚያስፈልገው ኢንዲፔንደንት ቦርድ ይሄን ለመቆጣጠር ነው። ማኔጀሮቹ ዲቬት እንዳያደርጉ ከሼርሆልደርስ ኢንትረስት። ቦነስ ቅድም የተነሳው ቦነስ አንዱ ሜካኒዝም ነው። ሼር መስጠት ለማኔጅመንት ቲሙ ሲምፕሊ ኮምፐንሴሽን ፕላናችንን ማስተካከል የማኔጅመንቱ ውሳኔ ከሼርሆልደሩ ጋር ኮንሲስተንት እንዲሆን ያደርገዋል። ለዛም ነው ሼርሆልደር ምርጫ ቦርድ ኦፍ ዳይሬክተርስ ምርጫ is critical። ቤቶቹ ናቸው የሚመርጡት የራሳቸውን ኤጀንት ማለት ነው። ስለዚህ if you are interested you can read agency theory Jensen and Miklink. I can share you agency theory በፋይናንሻል ቨርዥኑ ማለት ነው።
ኦኬ እሺ አመሰግናለሁ።
ኦኬ ጉድ ሌላ ጥያቄ አለ? ተባነዘ question
ወደ ኋላ መለስ ይቻላል ወይስ በኋላ ታይም ይሰጠናል?
ሶሪ
ወደ ኋላ ላይ ያለው ስላይድ ላይ ጥያቄ ነበረ ነው ወይስ በኋላ ታይም ይሰጠናል? እሺ
okay this one
no the curve
the first one or the second one?
Yes. In this slide the irrelevance according to the irrelevance it becomes a straight line. The irrelevance means how could it be a straight line? It is not a constant. Irrelevance does not mean it's a constant amount of dividend. It can be low, it can be high. How the curve could be a straight line, a constant?
The constant one is the cost of equity in this case, not the dividend. Whatever the amount of dividend is, the cost is the same. And in the above graph, whatever the amount of dividend is, whether we increase dividend amount or decrease the dividend amount, what is constant is the share price, stock price.
Okay.
It is the price that is constant, not the payout.
Okay.
We increase or decrease payout, the price will be the same.
Okay. It's also the same in the next slide, the cost of equity.
Yes, it is the same. The cost is the same because the cost is related to price. To maximize share price, we have to be able to minimize cost.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Another issue as a manager that I have to know is paying stable dividend growth. Stably growing dividend. There must be growth because the company must grow. It's mandatory. Expansion must be there. And paying stable dividend will help as a manager to maximize share price. Instead of, in addition to whether to pay high or lower dividend, paying stable dividend will have positive effect on share price. Because if the dividend payment is consistent, for example, if there is 10% growth annually, the risk is low. For example, if it is not variable, for example, sometimes increase, decrease, increase, decrease, increase, decrease. The variability, higher variability indicates the presence of risk. When you calculate the standard deviation or the variance, the variability, it will be high. That means it is risky. There will be deviation from the expected. But if we are paying stable dividend, the risk will be low. The risk will be low. If the risk is low, cost of capital will be low. Lower risk, lower cost of capital. If there is lower cost of capital, there will be higher price. Am I clear? So lower risk leads to lower cost of capital. Lower cost of capital leads to increase in share price. So in addition to following birds in the hand or tax preference or irrelevance, this stability or paying stable dividend will have positive effect on maximizing our share price. So dividends tend to be a function of stable growth in earning. Or we can follow residual dividend model, which is logical practically. Residual model. Find the retained earning needed for the capital budget. We'll have capital budget or investment decision. And payouts any leftover earnings or the residual as dividend. First, you have to cover your investment from your internal source of finance. And if there is any leftover, pay that. This is what residual dividend model says. So this policy minimizes fluctuation and equity signaling cost. Equity signaling cost instead of issuing common stock, we can use our internal resource. By minimizing dividend, we can use the internal equity, which is retained earning. By doing that, we can minimize signaling cost. As I have seen in capital structure theories, signaling theories, if the company is issuing common stock, it will have negative signal. So if you are following residual model to finance our project, if we are using our internal source of finance, the floating cost will be low, there is no signaling cost, and we can minimize the weighted average cost of capital. If we can minimize weighted average cost of capital, we can maximize share price. So this is the formula. Dividend equals with net income minus target equity ratio times capital budget. Capital budget means the total amount of investment, long-term investment. Target equity ratio means the percentage of debt and the percentage of equity. The equity portion, target equity ratio. It will be more clear if we say it by using an example. So any leftover, net income minus target equity ratio times total capital budget will give us dividend. The residual is going to be dividend. Let's say it by using an example. For example, if your capital budget is 800,000, target capital structure, the mix between debt and equity in the company, 40% debt, 60% equity. So you need 40% loan, or you can say bond, simply debt, 60% from equity. Equity includes retained earning and common stock, selling common stock. So you know your capital budget, you know the target equity ratio, which is 60%. This is given. And the forecasted net income is 600,000. This is given. The question is, how much of this 600,000 should we pay out as dividend? So our concern is to decide how much to distribute to owners and how much to retain in the company. So if we are following this residual model, the first thing is we have to cover our capital budget from the equity, that is 60%. I mean, 60% of this capital budget must be covered from the net income. So the 60% of this capital budget, it is 800,000. 60% of 800,000 is 480,000. Must be equity. And the remaining debt, that means 40% debt. So this is the capital structure. This is the total capital budget. 60% or 480,000 must be covered from equity, and the remaining, that is 320, must be debt. This is the capital structure. So we have 600,000 net income. So from this 600,000, the amount of equity financing needed is 480. So 600,000 minus 480 will give us 120. This is the leftover net income, and this can be paid as dividend. So the dividend amount, according to this model, is 120,000. So if you're interested to put in the form of percentage, the payout ratio is amount of payout divided by total net income. 120 divided by 600,000. It is 20%. So the dividend payout is 20%. And what if, how would a drop in net income as 400,000 affect the dividend? And another question, 800,000. Answer the second one. For example, assume the capital structure is the same. The amount of equity financing is the same. The only difference is the amount of net income. What if net income is 800,000? What will be the amount of dividend? Try this. If your net income is 800,000, the target equity ratio is 60%, 60% equity, and the total capital budget is 800,000. Capital budget. The capital budget is 800,000, and you have net income of 800,000. What will be the amount of dividend? What about the first one? If your net income is 400,000.
Zero no የሚሆነው
Dividend? Zero.
Be zero.
Yeah.
Because it can cover 480,000.
Yeah, even we need to sell common stock. All right. What about the second one? We need equity of 480, so 480, I mean 800,000 minus 480. It will be 320. Okay, Sintayo, you already answered this. But the concept is simple. First, you have to cover your investment, and if there is any leftover, pay in the form of dividend. This is what the residual model says. If you have any question.
Yes, here, sir.
Okay.
In the case of net income of 400,000, there it will be a negative of 80,000. So, are we forced to sell the common stock?
If our capital structure is 60-40,
yeah.
I mean, when you say equity, equity includes retained earning and common stock, internal equity and external equity. We have seen this in capital structure section. We have to sell common stock, at least.
To pay the dividend?
No, to cover the project's finance.
The project finance.
So, yeah. Okay, if you have another question.
The dividend will be zero, but to cover the project cost, I have to sell the common stock.
Yes. Okay. So there is no dividend because it's not enough even to cover your equity portion of your investment.
Yeah.
Okay. How would a change in investment opportunities affect dividend under the residual policy? So the amount of dividend will depend on the investment opportunity of the company. Fewer good investments will lead to smaller capital budget. So if the investment opportunities are lower, the capital budget for the company is low. If the capital budget is low, the amount of dividend will be high. The residual will be high. It's straightforward. If there are good investment opportunities, our company's capital budget will be high. The higher the capital budget, the lower the residual amount of net income, so the lower the dividend. So under residual model, the amount of dividend payment will vary based on the investment opportunity of the company. Lower investment opportunity, higher dividend. Higher investment opportunity, lower dividend. So when you see the advantage and disadvantage of this residual model, the advantage is it minimizes new stock issues and flotation cost. It minimizes new stock issue because before issuing new stock, we can use our internal source of finance. So we can minimize the flotation cost. Flotation cost means if we are going to issue new share, there are costs related to accounting costs, legal costs, and we have to pay for regulatory bodies and the others. So flotation cost is high for newly issued shares. But if we are using residual dividend policy, the first source of finance is the net income. We can retain that net income. So This is the advantage of using the residual dividend policy. The disadvantage is it will result in variable dividends. And as I've said previously, the formula to calculate the price is price equals with dividend in the coming period divided by the cost of equity minus gross. And cost of equity is a function of the risk in the company. The higher the risk, the higher the cost of equity. If the cost of equity is high, price will be low. So if you are following this residual dividend model, the amount of dividend will vary depending on our investment opportunities. There will be investment in this period, there will not be investment in the coming period, and the likes. So there will be variability in the amount of dividend. So it will send conflicting signals, increased risk, and doesn't appeal to any specific clientele. So simply the cost will be high. The cost of equity will be high. Increasing cost of equity will lead to decreasing price. So this is a disadvantage of following residual dividend policy strictly. So in conclusion, consider residual policy when setting target payout, but do not follow it rigidly. So you have to be flexible. And this is the dividend payout model. If you have any question, you can ask. If you have any question. Okay, another issue in dividend is DRIP, Dividend Reinvestment Plan, or in short, DRIP. Shareholders can automatically reinvest their dividends in share of the company's common stock. That means instead of paying cash, we can issue shares. DRIP. DRIP. Okay. Dividend reinvestment plan can be performed in two ways, maybe open market, maybe new stock issue. Open market means it is possible to purchase shares from the market, or it is possible to issue new shares from the company. Types of plans. In open market purchase plan, bear orders to be reinvested are handed over to trustee who buys shares on the open market. So shareholders will not directly buy shares. Instead, there will be a trustee, an individual who will act based on the interest of shareholders. So the trustee will purchase shares from the market. And brokerage costs are reduced by the volume purchase. The company's share can be purchased from the market. So the brokerage cost will be minimized. There will be voluminous purchase and convenient, easy way to invest, just useful for investors. That means investors, instead of getting cash, they are getting more share. They are investing their cash. And the investment process is even easy because there will be trustee. That trustee will purchase the company's share, their own company, additional share. If it is new stock issue plan, instead of buying shares from the market, the company will issue its new share. So stocks to drip in rollies, keep money and use it to buy assets. So no fees are charged usually if it is new issue share. So buyers or shareholders will not be charged. So no fee, plus sell stock at discount usually. The company will sell shares at discount because there is no flotation cost. It is internal, so the flotation cost is low. No need to pay for brokers and others. And firms that need new equity capital use new stock plan. And firms with no need for new equity can use open market purchase. So dividend reinvestment plan. They have cash in the company. Instead of receiving that cash, they will purchase shares. These share purchase may be open market. The plan may be open market, purchasing shares from the market, or new share will be issued by the organization. These are the plans to perform or to complete this trip. And the best example for this practice is companies listed in NYSE, New York Stock Exchange, which is considered as the largest stock market, New York Stock Exchange. Listed companies have a dividend reinvestment plan. Most of the companies have. So it is useful for investors. Easy way of investment. In setting dividend policy, the things that you have to do. The first thing is forecast capital needs over a planning horizon, often 5 years, or you can have a plan for more than 5 years. Know your capital need in the coming periods before setting your dividend policy. Set your capital structure. Amount of finance from equity, amount from debt. You have to know this. Estimate annual equity need and set target payout based on the residual model. You can follow the residual model. And generally, some dividend growth rate emerges. So maintain a target growth rate if possible. Maintain a target growth rate, because having consistent dividend payment will have positive effect on share price. So you can follow the residual model. It's not advisable to follow that model strictly. You can add some growth percentage. Following the residual model is helpful for organizations because first, we have to cover our investment. After that, we have to pay dividend. It is a good starting point. The residual model is a good starting point, but it's not advisable to strictly follow because there will be variability in dividend payment if we are following it strictly. To avoid this, you can add some features like having stable growth, dividend growth. Another issue that we have to consider is stock repurchase. Stock repurchase. Repurchase means buying its own stock back from shareholders. The organization can buy its stock from shareholders. There are different reasons for this. One is as an alternative to distribute cash as dividend. Stock repurchase will be there. To dispose of one-time cash for an asset, say. For example, if the company owns cash as a result, because of selling its building, for example. To dispose that cash, there will be a repurchasing of its own share from shareholders. Or to make large capital structure change. Capital structure change. For example, capital structure means, for example, if the total asset is 100%, capital structure means the source of finance for that asset. Let's consider the total financial structure. For example, if it is 40% equity debt and 60% equity. And to make a large capital structure change, if the amount of equity is high, for example, we can make this, can perform this stock repurchase. We can purchase our company share from shareholders so that we can increase our debt and minimize our equity financing. So these are some of the reasons for stock repurchase. And it has some advantage and disadvantage. The advantage, stockholders can tender or not. There will be tender or without tender. It helps to avoid setting a high dividend that cannot be maintained. So instead of setting high dividend, we can repurchase our share back. So it will minimize pressure from shareholder side because the company is collecting its own share back. So repurchase stock can be used in the takeovers or resold to raise cash as needed. Now we can purchase our company share from the market. If there is takeover in a country with well-developed financial market, takeovers are common. One company will acquire another company, will control another company by purchasing shares from the market. 50 plus common stock. Greater than 50% common stock ownership will give the investor the controlling right, decision-making right. That means. So by repurchasing our stock, and by holding those shares, if there is takeover attempt, or if one company tries to control our company, we can sell those shares. So we can increase the amount of outstanding shares in our company, so that we can minimize the percentage. For example, if there are 100,000 shares, 100,000 number of shares, if one company owns 51,000 shares, it is greater than 50%. 51,000 shares. It is greater than 50%, so there will be control. So to avoid this control, sometimes the company may repurchase its own share. For example, assume the total, this is another example, the total outstanding share is 100,000. If the company repurchases 20,000, by repurchasing 20,000, the remaining number of shares will be 80,000. If one company purchases, let's say, 41,000 shares, it is possible to control the company because it is greater than 50% of the total outstanding shares. To avoid this, by repurchasing and owning these shares, if one company tries to control the company, our company, by purchasing more than 50%. In the market, there are 80,000 shares, assume. We repurchased 20,000 already. If one company tries to own 41,000, we can resell this. We can resell the 20,000. So the total number of outstanding shares will be 100,000 back. So this 41,000 is no more better than 50% of the total outstanding. So we can avoid takeovers. If we can use this as a source of cash. If there is cash shortage, we can use those shares to access cash for our company. And income received in capital gains rather than higher taxed dividends. So this is one way of avoiding dividend. Instead of paying dividend to shareholders, we can repurchase shares. And it is possible to avoid dividend tax by stock repurchase. So stockholders may take as a positive signal because management thinks stock is undervalued. Look, if we are buying our shares back, it is a positive signal. Investors will think that the current price of the share is undervalued. That is why the management is buying its own share. In the future, share price will increase, and it will have positive effect on our company's share price. So these are advantages, and we'll see the disadvantage. But before that, if you have any question. If you have any question.
Sir.
Okay.
At what price will the company will repurchase this?
Market price. If the company is purchasing shares from the market price will be used as a base.
Yeah. But in some of our companies shareholding, companies will repurchase the share with a given or determined price.
In our country?
Yeah, in some companies of our country.
Because there is no secondary market. We don't know the market price of the share. That's why the management determines some price.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And it has advantage too. The disadvantage, the disadvantage is maybe viewed as negative signal sometimes. The company is purchasing its own share because there is no investment opportunity. So it will transmit negative signal. Sometimes tax authority could impose penalties if repurchases were primarily to avoid tax on dividend. If the company prefers to pay its own share instead of paying dividend, there will be penalty. If it is considered as evasion of tax. And selling stockholders may be well informed, hence be treated unfairly. May not be well informed. The management is buying its own share, sometimes by believing that the current share price is undervalued. In the future, the share price will increase. If the management thinks like this, the management will purchase its own share. But the sellers are not fairly treated because they are selling their shares without knowing that their current share price is undervalued. And firms may have a better price may have to bid for their own shares. So the company may pay higher price for its own share. So this is another disadvantage. And another issue in this dividend is stock dividend and stock split. Stock dividend. Stock dividends, firms issue new shares in lieu of paying cash dividend. Instead of paying cash in the form of dividend, they can issue shares. The nature is similar with cash dividend. For example, if it is cash dividend, for example, if it is 20% dividend per share, cash will be paid according to that percentage. If it is share, the share will be expressed. For example, in cash dividend case, it will be expressed in terms of percentage. For example, 10% dividend per share. Or in share case, 10 shares for each 100 shares owned. Can be expressed in this way. Simply, instead of paying cash, we can issue shares. This is what we call it, stock dividend. Another issue is stock split. This simply means increasing number of shares outstanding and decreasing share price. And the ratio can be expressed 2 to 1, or we can have different ratio. For example, it is possible to split stock into 2. If there is, for example, if the share price, 1 share equals with 1,000 market price, assume. Stock split means minimizing the value of the share and increasing the number of the share. For example, you can make these shares 2 and share price 500. Sorry, 500, not 5,000. So 2 times 500, the total share value will be 1,000. The total share value will be 1,000. So increasing number of shares and decreasing price per share, but the total equity value is the same. And both stock dividend and stock splits increase the number of shares outstanding, so the pie is divided into smaller pieces. That means we are paying dividend from our retained earnings, if it is stock dividend. So the total amount of equity in the company will be the same. The same is true for stock split. The total amount of equity in the company is the same. For example, if the total equity before split was, let's assume 1,000, after split, 2 shares, value 500. 2 times 500, 1,000. The total equity value is the same for both stock split and stock dividend. So unless the stock dividend or stock split conveys information or is accompanied by another event like higher dividends, the stock price forces us to keep each investor's wealth unchanged. The stock price will be the same. The previous one. It was 1,000. After split, the stock price will be 500. So the equity value will be 1,000, the same. But in the future, there will be possibility of increasing share price. And this is the stock split is performing by management if they believe that the current stock price is high because there is average market price. For example, there are competitors, companies working in our industry. For example, if the competitor's price is, let's say 100 average price, and if we are with good prospect, regardless of that prospect, If our current market price is already high, there is no possibility of increase in price. So in this case, we can split the share. We can split. For example, let's go back to the previous one. Currently, assume the average price of shares for our competitors is 1,000. We have good prospect. So regardless of the prospect, there is no possibility of increasing our share price above 1,000. In this case, we can split our share. After split, the equity value will be 1,000, the same. But after announcing our good prospects, there will be possibility of increasing share price. For example, the share price, let's assume, will increase by 100 and it will be 600 per share. So 2 times 600, it will be 1,000, 1,200. So there is a possibility of increasing the total value of the firm by splitting shares in the future. But immediately after the split, the total equity value will be the same. But in the future, as a result of splitting, there is a possibility of increasing the value of the firm. Okay, if you have any question, was the one. If you have any question, you can ask.
Can I come in, Doctor?
Yes, yes, you can.
I want to know if both stock dividend and the stock split are subject to taxation. For the shareholders.
Stock split, there is no tax actually.
Okay.
Stock dividend, capital gain tax will be there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And if they are paying dividend, there will be tax on dividend. But if they are not paying dividend, there will be capital gain. And the tax on capital gain is usually lower than tax on dividend. And usually the government authority will consider stock dividend as a way of avoiding the tax.
So double taxation will not apply both on these two dividends. The stock dividend and stock split.
Stock split is simply splitting our stock.
Okay.
አንድ የነበረውን ሁለት አድርገን ቫልዩ መቀነስ ነው። ምንም ክፍያ ምናምን ጋር የተገናኘ ነገር የለውም። ስቶክ ዲቪደንድ
ለሼርሆልደርስ አብዛኛውን ጊዜ ደብል ታክሴሽን እንደ ቢግ ኢሹ ይነሳል። ለማናጀር ስም አንዳንዴ ሼር ግዙበት የሚሉ ውስጥ ለውስጥ ሼር ግዙበት ታክስ ከሚደረግ የሚል አለ። ምክንያቱም ካምፓኒው አንዴ ይከፍላል ታክስ ባገኘው ገቢ፣ ግን ኢንዲቪጁዋል ሼርሆልደርስ እንደገና ደግሞ በሚያገኙት ገቢ ታክስ ስለሚከፍሉ
ዲቪደንድ ከወሰዱት ዲቪደንድ ታክስ ይከፍላሉ። ሪቴን ከተደረገና ወደ አክሲዮን ከተቀየረ ካፒታል ጌን አኪሙሌት እያደረጉ ነው። ካፒታል ጌን ታክስ ደግሞ በብዙ ሀገሮች ከዲቪደንድ ታክስ ያነሰ ነውና ታክስን ለመቀነስም ይጠቀሙበት ይችላሉ አንዳንድ።
ኦልራይት ቴንክ ዩ።
ኦኬ ስፕሊት ግን ሲምፕሊ ኢንክሪዚንግ ነምበር ኦፍ ሼርስ ታክስ የሚባል ኢሹ አይኖረውም ስቶክ ስፕሊት።
Okay, thank you.
Okay, welcome. So when should a firm consider splitting its stock? As I have said previously, there is widespread belief that in the well-developed financial system that the average or optimal price of shares is between 20 and 80. So stock split can be used to keep the price in optimal range. So stock split generally occurs when management is confident, so are interpreted as positive signal. The previous example. One, having 1,000 value, splitting into two. Number of shares increase, and the price, the value will be reduced to 100, sorry. So the total value, 1 times 1,000, 1,000, 2 times 500, 1,000. But in the future, if there is positive issue, positive or good activities in the company, there will be increase in share price. So the total value of the firm can be maximized. So this is all about the chapter, and these are questions for you. Try to see them. This is all about the chapter in the course as well. If you have any question, please price. Do you have any question?
Can I ask?
Yes.
Brokerage share ላይ ማለት ነው እኛ ሀገር ፕራክቲካሊ ስለሌለ ድለላ አለ ማለት ነው ሼር ላይ አልገባኝም
Yes. In the financial market stock brokers are common.
Okay.
ድለላ ስንለው ፕሮፌሽናል ነው ዝም ብሎ ያልተማረ ምናምን እንዳይመስል
ገብቶኛል እሱ ገብቶኛል ግን እንዴት ሆኖ
ማርኬት ውስጥ የሚሰሩ የአክሲዮን ገበያ ውስጥ አሁን
እንሰው ይሄን ያልጨምረው በመባባል ነው ወይስ እንደው በምን መልኩ ነው ብዬ ነው
ድለላው ሻጩን ሊወክሉ ይችላሉ ገዢውን ሊወክሉ ይችላሉ ስለዚህ አንዱን አካል ወክለው ነው የሚሰሩት ስለዚህ ኮሚሽን ይኖራቸዋል ፕራይሱ ላይ የነሱ ኮስት አብሮ ይጨምራል ፍሎቲንግ ኮስት ምንለው እሱ ነው ለምሳሌኛ እየሸጥን ከሆነ እነሱ ደላ ስቶክ ብሮከርስ ያልናቸው የሚሸጡልን ከሆነ መክፈል አለብን አክሲዮን ምንሸጥ ከሆነ ለምሳሌ ለነሱ መክፈል አለብን እሱን ነው ፍሎቲንግ ኮስት ምንለው አንደኛው እሱን መክፈላችን የድርጅታችን ቫልዩ ላይ ኔጌቲቭ ኢፌክት ይኖራል ዴፊኒትሊ እንደዛኛን የሚወክሉ ይኖራሉ እና በጣም ኃይለኛ ቢዝነስ ነው ባይዘይ ማርኬቱ ከመጣ ማለት ኦኬ Okay. If you have any question, ማንኛውም ጥያቄ እሱን በሚመለከት
ይቅርታ አሁን አውት ላይ ሬሽዮን ስናወጥ 40% 20% ልናገኝ እንችላለን እና አሁን ለምሳሌ ሆልደሮቹ ዲቪደንዱ ስናከፋፍል ለምሳሌ ግል ባንክ ሀገር ማለት ነው ይሆና አንድ ቢሊዮን ብር አተረፈ ብንልና የሚቀነሰው ተቀንሶ ሬዚጁዋሉን ስናከፋፍል 20% ይደርሳቸዋል ስንል for every shareholder percent እናከፋፍላለን ማለት ነው
per share ነው የሚገለጸው
አዎ ገብቶኛል እሱ በሼራቸው እናባዛለን ግን 20% ለሁሉም አፕላይ ይሆናል
እንዴ በፐርሰንቴጅ ካስቀመጥን እኮ አንድ ብርም ያለው 100 ሚሊዮንም ያለው በዛ ፐርሰንቴጅ ልክ ነው የሚወስደው በኢንቨስትመንቱ ፐርሰንቴጅ ልክ ማለት ነው ምኑ ነው ግራ ገባ አልገባኝ
አይ በቃ እንደው ብዙ ላዋጣው ከፍ ያለ ትንሽ ላዋጣው ዝቅ ያለ ነገር ማለት ነው
በፐርሰንት ካልኩሌት ስናደርገው እኮ ብዙ ያዋጣው ብዙ ይወስዳል ትንሽ ያዋጣው ትንሽ ይወስዳል
እውነት ነው
ለምሳሌ ዝም ብለ በሌላ እንትን ብናየው የ100,000 20% ስንት ነው 20,000 የ1 ሚሊዮን 20% ስንት ነው የጨመረ ነው ስለዚህ በኢንቨስትመንቱ ልክ ነው የሚሆነው ማለት Okay, if you have another question.
አንድ ጥያቄ አለኝ
Okay.
So ሄክ ትምርቱ ውጪ ትንሽም እንትን ስለ ስቶክ ማርኬት ነውና what's your recommendation as a professional is it necessary to have stock market in Ethiopia or it's not the time to I know ብዙ ጥናቶች እንዳሉ አውቃለሁ ግን አንዳንድ ሰው ምንድነው የምታስበው ለምን አንዳንድ ፕሮፌሽናሎች ስቶክ ማርኬት በዚህ ታይም ለኢትዮጵያ አይጠቅምም ይላሉ አንዳንድ ሰዎች ደግሞ it is necessary for invest ለማድረግ ሀገርን ለማሳደግ ይጠቅማል ይላሉ so ምን ትላለህ አንተ እዚህ ላይ by the way I liked your lecture class በጣም እና I look forward to work with you
Okay. እኔ ምለው ወቅታዊ ነው እንደውም ዘግይቷል ነው and let me support my argument with an example for example are you working in business organizations በአማርኛ እናርጋውና እየሰራህ ነው
no እየሰራው አይደለም actually እኔ ሌላ ቦታ ነኝ
okay another example if you have for example 100,000 birr in our country currently in what area will you invest in our country የት ላይ ማዋል ትችላለህ is it easy
yeah it's not easy I know
another example for example you are managing a business organization you need you have good opportunity to produce and deliver goods in the short term. በአጭር ጊዜ አምርተህ ብትሸጥ ብዙ ብር የምታገኝበት opportunity አግኝተሃል, but you have no cash to purchase input. What is the source of finance for this currently in our country? ከየት ታገኘዋለህ አሁን ባለንበት ሁኔታ ማለት ነው?
maybe ከባንክ ይሻላል።
ባንክ የሾርት ተርም ብድር እንደልብ ማግኘት ይቻላል? ያጭር ጊዜ
አይ ከባድ ነው።
በሁለቱ ኬስ ፋይናንሻል ማርኬት ቢኖር ብለህ ስታስበው 100 ሺህ ብር ቢኖር ምናልባት በ10 ሺህ ብር የ10 ካምፓኒ ባለቤት ልትሆን ይችላል። it is easy to invest።
ግን አሁን ምንድነው እንደ አንድ ምክንያት የምነሳው ትጅ
ለጨርስ ይሄንና በኋላ እንቀጥላለን። ሌላው ለቢዝነስ ኦርጋናይዜሽንስ ሶርስ ኦፍ ፋይናንሱ ስሙዝ ይሆናል። ለምሳሌ የዛሬ አመት አካባቢ ኢዚ ኦፍ ዱይንግ ቢዝነስ ኢን አወር ካንትሪ ሁለት ሀገር ምናምን ነበር የምንቀድመው ቢዝነስ በቀላሉ ለመጀመር የሚለው ማለት ነው። ሌሎች ፋክተሮች እንዳሉ ሆነው ፋይናንስ ክሪቲካል። አንተ ለጀምር የሆነ ስራ ብትል በእኛ ሀገር ያለ አማራጭ አክሲዮን መሸጥ ነው። አክሲዮን ሸጥ ባይበቃ ከየት ነው የምታመጣው? ባንክ ካልፈቀደልህ አልፈቀደልህም ትቆማለህ ማለት ነው። ማርኬቱ ቢኖር ብዙ አማራጭ ይኖራል። የሎንግ ተርም ሶርስ ኦፍ ፋይናንስ፣ የሾርት ተርም ሶርስ ኦፍ ፋይናንስ ፕላስ ኤፊሽንት ዩዝ ኦፍ ሪሶርሰስ። ለምሳሌ ብር አንዳንዱ ቤቱ ውስጥ ያስቀምጠዋል 100 ሺውን ምንም በኢኮኖሚ ውስጥ ስሙዝሊ አይንቀሳቀስም። ሪሶርሱ ፋይናንሻል ሪሶርስ ማለት ነው። ስሙዝሊ ማይንቀሳቀስ ከሆነ ደግሞ ፕሮዳክቲቭ እየሆነ አይደለም፣ ለሀገር እድገት ኮንትሪቢዩት እያደረገ አይደለም። there is deficit in it። አይዲያ ኖሮት ኢንቨስት ማድረግ ይፈልጋል፣ ብሩ ግን ስሙዝሊ ስለማይንቀሳቀስ አይደርሰውም። አንዳንዱ ደግሞ ዝም ብሎ ማይሰራ ብር ያስቀምጣል። ስለዚህ ኢኮኖሚው ፋይናንሻል ሪሶርሱ በኢኮኖሚው ስሙዝሊ እንዲንቀሳቀስ ያደርግና ኢንቨስትመንቱን ሞቲቬት ያደርጋል፣ እንዲኖር ያደርጋል፣ ለሀገር እድገት ኮንትሪቢዩት ያደርጋል። there are also other line of arguments። እስቲ ያንተን ሐሳብ ቀጥልና ቀጥላል።
ምንድነው አንዳንድ ሰዎች የሚሉት የኛ ሀገር ሰው በብዛት ካንትሪ ሳይድ ነው ኦር ገበሬ ነው፣ ስለ ፋይናንሻል አይደለም ስለ ባንክ ራሱ አያውቅም ይላሉ። so in past years ደግሞ ኢኮኖሚክ ኢምባላንስ አለ ያው with respect to politics or any other things. so ይሄ stock market or this financial market ከመጣ እዚሁ ከተማ ያለውና ድሮም እንትን ወድሉ ያለው ነው እንጂ የምጠቀምበት ገበሬ ምን ተቀመዋል እዛ እንትን ምን ያደርግለታል? so ሀገር ኢኮኖሚ ላይ የሚጨምረው እንትን ትንሽ ነው ብሎ ይከራከራሉ።
yes I know. Why do you have read an article by Professor Asrat and ብዙ ጊዜ ሆኖታል ኢትዮጵያ ውስጥ ፋይናንሻል ማርኬት ያስፈልገናል ያስፈልገን የሚል ጥሩ አርቲክል አለ። prospects and challenges ብዙ አሉ፣ ግን the one by Professor Asrat is professor in the US. ምን ተቆጥላለን አስራት I can share you ታገኙዋለህ
ዋይዝ ቲቸር
ኦኬ
ምናልባትም
አቋረጠ ግን እንተና ሐሳቡ
እንዳነሳው ማለት አይ ገበሬውን ስላነሳ ነው። ገበሬው እንደውም ይሄን አጥቶ አራጣ ከዚህ ካቅም በላይ በሆነ ወለድ ማለት ነው። ካቅም በላይ አንዴ አሁን ልክ ያለው የባንክ ሲስተሙ ስለማይፈቅድለት ምናልባት ቢፈቅድለት የሚሆነው ይቺ ማዳበሪያ በመንግስት ደረጃ የሚቀርብለት ስለሆነ ነው። ለሌላ ጉዳይ ስለማይፈቅድለት ብዙ ጊዜ ያውም ይሄኛው ቢኖር እንደውም ገበሬው ራሱ ተጠቃሚ እኮ
indirectly ሆናል። ያ I understand
ዳይሬክትሊ ተጠቃሚ ነው። ለምሳሌ ያክል አሁን ገበሬው ከጥቅምት በኋላ ከፍተኛ ገንዘብ ያገኛል። ከሰኔ እስከ መስከረም መጨረሻ ግን ገበሬው ለምሳሌ ያክል አረም ያሳርምበት አዝመራውን የሚያሰራበት whatever ምንላቸው ብዙ ከእርሻው ጋር የሚሄዱ ነገሮች እንደሚቸገር እናውቃለን። በተለይ ስትንቀሳቀስም አብዛኛውም ደግሞ ምንም የኢትዮጵያ ኗሪ 80% ገበሬ ስለሆነ ስለዚህ ያውም ይሄ መኖሩ ምን ያደርገዋል ማለት ነው። አሁን ከሚያመርተው በላይ አንደኛ እንዲያመርት የሚረዳው ነው የሚሆነው። ሁለተኛ አሁን ይሄ ቅድም ያልኩት አለ 100 ብር ተበድሮ 100 ብር ጨምሮ አይነት ነው የሚከፍሉበት ሁኔታዎች አሉ። ስለዚህ ትክክለኛ ተመጣጣኝ የሆነ ክፍያ እንዲከፍል ያውም ለከተማው ብቻ ሳይሆን ለገበሬው ትልቅ ጥቅም ያለው ይመስለኛልና አንድ እሱ ነው። ሁለተኛ እንደ ስቶክ ማርኬት ስንል አንደኛው እቃዎችን ገዝተህ ማስቀመጥና ከዛ በኋላ መሸጥ
አይደለም that is commodity market
እንደዛ ከሆነ ምናልባት ምን ልፈልጌ ነው አሁን የእቃዎች ዋጋ በኢንፍሌሽን ሬት ፐር ዴይ ነው ይሄዳል እንደውም የበለጠ አዋጭ ነው ልፈልጌ ነው ወደዛ ሳስብ
ገባኝ አንተ ላይን ኦፍ አርጊውመንት ኮሞዲቲ ስቶክ ሚለው በኢትዮጵያ ኬዝ ባይዘ አካውንቲንግ ተርሙ የእንግሊዝ የአሜሪካ ሞዴል የሚባል አካውንቲንግ አለ እና ስቶክ ኢንቨንተሪ ምንለው ነው ስቶክ ምንለው እኛ ሀገር እንጂ እዚህ ጋር ስቶክ ያለ ነው አክሲዮን ማለታችን ነው የድርጅቶቹን አክሲዮን ማለት እዚህ ፋይናንሻል ማርኬት ማለት አክሲዮኖች ቦንዶች የመንግስት ትሬጀሪ ቢልስ ሌላም ኔጎሺየብል ሰርቲፊኬት ኦፍ ዲፖዚት እነዚህ የሚሸጡበት ገበያ ማለት ነው ስለዚህ ብር ከፈለግን እንሸጣለን ድርጅታችን ይሸጣል ብር ካለን ደግሞ እንገዛለን የምናረግበት ፕላትፎርም ነው በዛው ሰዎች አሉ ኢንስቲትዩሽኖች አሉ ብዙ አካላት አሉ እሱ ገበሬዎች ያለው ቅድም እውቀት ይጠይቃል ገበያው ላይ ቀጥታ ገብቶ መስራት ይቻላል እና አብዛኛው ገበሬ ነው ሊሰራበት አይችልም ከተማ ያለው ነው ሊጠቀም የሚችለው የሚለው it is investment ለአንድ ሀገር እድገት ወሳኝ ነው በሚለው እንስማማለን ሁላችን ማን ጌቱ ነበር ከጠየቅሽ ጉቱ sorry investment is critical for growth of any country do you agree with this
I agree but if it is if it is balanced I think
ኢንቨስትመንት መኖር አለበት ሀገሪቱ ማምረት ካልቻለች አምርታ የራሷን ምርት መሸጥ መጠቀም ካልቻለች እድገት የለም
if it is accommodating in my belief
accommodating what
ከሆነ ማለት ሁሉም ባይሆን at least ከብዙ ቦታ አኮሞዴት የሚያደርግ ከሆነ ማለት ከታች ሌቨልም ከሚድልም ከቶፕ ሌቨልም ክላስም አኮሞዴት ማድረግ የሚችል ከሆነ is good ማለት fairly distributed ማይሆን ከሆነ አሁንም stable አያረጋም ብዬ ነው ማምነው
yeah I understand your argument but one line of argument for the need for financial market is wealth distribution ለምሳሌ በእኛ ሀገር ትላልቅ የሚባሉ ካምፓኒዎች በሁለት ሰው በአንድ ሰው የተያዙ ናቸው ሊስትድ ቢሆኑ ግን ፐብሊክ ካምፓኒ ወደ መሆን ቢመጡስ እኔም ሼር ይኖረኛል አክሲዮን ገዛለሁ ሌላውም ሼር አክሲዮን ይገዛል ባለቤት ይሆናል እንደውም ለዌልዝ ዲስትሪቢዩሽን ፖዚቲቭ ኢፌክት ነው ያለው ፋይናንሻል ማርኬት አይመስልህም
ትክክል ነው በዛ
ዌልዝ ዲስትሪቢዩሽን እንዲኖር ያደርጋል ፋይናንሻል ሪሶርስ ስሙዝሊ ፍሎ ያደርጋል አሁን በእኛ ሀገር ባንክ ዶሚኔትድ ነው ባንክ ካልፈቀደልህም kind of ግን ቢዝነስ ኦርጋናይዜሽንስ ያጭር ጊዜ ካሽ ሾርቴጅ ገጥሟቸው ሊዘጉ ይችላሉ ሌላ አማራጭ ስለሌላቸው ሶርስ ኦፍ ፋይናንስ ማግኘት ብርህን ያለህን ኢንቨስት አድርገህ ለምሳሌ 100,000 ብር ልድገምልህና ጥሩ አንደርስታንዲንግ ካለ ስለ ማርኬቱ በትንሽ ቀናት ውስጥ ትልቅ ደረጃ ልትደርስ ትችላለህ the best example for this is Warren Buffett በደንብ ይሰራል ፋይናንሻል ማርኬት ውስጥ there's also an African guy Zimbabwe I think Strive Masiawa if I'm not mistaken ሚሰራል በደንብ ፋይናንሻል ማርኬቱ ላይና ለዌልዝ ዲስትሪቢዩሽን እንደውም ፖዚቲቭ ኢፌክት ነው ያለው ፋይናንሻል ፍሎ ስሙዝ ይሆናል ኢንቨስትመንቱን ስሙዝ የማድረግ እንትን አለ but it has its own risk governance በጣም critical because the failure of the financial system is failure of the country that is why banks are highly regulated ጠንካራ የሆነ ሬጉሌሽን ግን ያስፈልጋል by the way this is a separate course financial markets and institutions I'm not sure whether the course is included in your curriculum financial markets ሰፋ ያለ ራሱን የቻለ ኮርስ ነው ይጋን ከማርኬቱ ጋር ነው የምንሰራው ግን ቢዝነስ ኦርጋናይዜሽን ላይ ያለውን ፋይናንሻል ዲሲዥን ያወራን ስለሆነ ነው ወደዛ ያለው if you are interested or if you have any question you can communicate with me via my email ታገኙኝ ትችላላችሁ መደወልም ይቻላል
thank you for the course also
okay thank you it was interesting ጥሩ ተሳትፎ ያለበት ነበር ጥሩ ነው ቀጥሉበት
Thank you እናመሰግናለን
sir
yes
yes sir sorry ዲስከሽኑ በጣም ጥሩ ስለነበር ተመስጭም ስለነበረ አረብሽም ብዬ ነው አንድ ጥያቄ ነበረችኝ ወደ ኋላ የመጨረሻዋ ስላይድ ላይ የመጨረሻዋ ስላይድ ላይ
እዚህ ጥያቄዎች ናቸው ለናንተ ነው ከዚህ ጋር እንዳትጠይቀኝ
ከጥያቄዎቹ በፊት ያለው ስላይድ
ኦኬ
እሺ this
one
yes and should yeah እዚህ ላይ ምን ይላል stock splits can be used to keep the price in the optimal range ይላልና ቅድም ፕራይሱ ዲተርሚን የሚሆነው ማርኬቱ የሰጠው ነው ብለናል አይደል
yes
ስለዚህ ማርኬቱ የሰጠው ከሆነ ፕራይሱን ዲተርሚን የሚያደርገው አሁን ደግሞ ስፕሊት በማድረግ ኦፕቲማል ሬንጁን ያው ኦፕቲማል ሬንጅ ማለት ያው ዞሮ ዞሮ ከማርኬቱ ከሆነ የሚወሰደው መጀመሪያ ማርኬቱ የሰጠው ከሆነ እንደ ስቶክ ፕራይስ ምን እንጠቀመው አሁን እዚህ ጋር ምን ኦፕቲማል ስፕሊት ማድረጉ አሰች ብዙ ቫሉ አድ ያደርጋል ወይ እንዴት ነው የሚለው እሱ ትንሽ ድርሳለች
ኦኬ አሁን ያንተ ድርጅት በጣም ጥሩ ቢሆን አሌክሳሲዮም እንትኑ 80 ደርሷል የአክሲዮን ዋጋው ከዛ በላይ የመጨመር እድሉ ኦልሞስት ወደ 0 የተጠጋ ነው ብለን እናስብ
እሺ
ተርተኛ ግን አንተ ድርጅት በጣም እያደገ ያለ ድርጅት ቢሆን የሼር ፕራይሱ ማደግ አለበት ወይስ የለበትም የድርጅቱ ቫልዩ መጨመር አለበት አይደል ናቹራል ነው ግን ኦሬዲ ከኦፕቲማል እንትኑ በላይ ብዙ አይሄድልም የሚገዛ አይኖርም አክሲዮን ስለዚህ ጥሩ ፕሮስፔክት ያለው ድርጅት ኮንፊደንት ከሆንክ ለምሳሌ በቅድማን ቀጥልና አንዷን ሼር መጀመሪያ 80 ነበር የምትሸጠው ጥሩ ፕሮስፔክት ያለ ከሆነ ምንም ጥሩ ነገር ብሰራ ከ80 የመጨመር እድሉ ወደ 0 የተጠጋ ከሆነ ምን ታረጋዋለህ ስፕሊት ታረጋዋለህ አንዷን ሁለት አደርግና አሁን ያለው እንትን አውቶማቲካሊ ወደ 40 ይመጣል ማለት ነው
ያ
ስለዚህ የሼር ቫልዩ መጀመሪያም 80 ነው አሁንም 80 ነው ለዚህ ሬንጅ ውስጥ ነው ግን አሁን አዲስ ፕሮጀክት ቢኖር በጣም ትርፋማ የሚያደርግ ድርጅቱን ሼር ፕራይሱ ምን ይሆናል ይጨምራል ወይ ይቀንሳል ከስፕሊት በኋላ ጥሩ ነገር ብሰራ ወደፊት ከስፕሊቱ ዲሲሽን በኋላ ለምሳሌ በጣም አዲስ ብሬክ ስሩ ቢኖረው ድርጅቱ ጥሩ ነገር ፖሊስ ማድረግ ቢጀምር ፖዚቲቭ ነገር ካለው ሼር ፕራይሱ ይጨምራል ለምሳሌ ሼር ፕራይሱ ወደ 60 ሊያድግ ይችላል within the optimal range still ግን የድርጅት ቫልዩ እየጨመረ ነው ለሲባዛ በ60 ሆነ ስንት ሆነ
ኦኬ 120 ያ
ስለዚህ የድርጅት ቫልዩ
ኦፕቲማል ሬንጅ ሆኖ 60 ነው ማለት ነው
within optimal range ሆኖ ግን የድርጅት ቫልዩም እያደገ ነው የሚሄደው ግልጽ ነው
ያ thank you and ቀደም ያልከው የፕሮፌሰር ያልከው የአስራት እንግዲህ will share us I think
okay I'll send together with the assignment
thank you
የመጨረሻው አንድ ለፈተና የሚያዘጋጅ ኬዞች አሳይመንት ሰጣቸዋል ከሱ ጋር ልትላቸው
እሺ
ሪፈረንሱ ላይ ያሉትን ማንበብ ከፈለጋችሁ እኔም ሼር አላደርጋችሁ እችላለሁ ኦንላይንም ታገኙዋቸዋላችሁ ባይዘይ ካን ዩዝ
ካለን በቂ አይ
ላይብረሪ ጄኔሲስ
ኢንፎርሜሽን ስለሌለኝ ነው ቴንክ ዩ በቃ መጽሐፍቶች ስላላየሁ
አሉ ሶስቱ መጽሐፎች አብሬ ልኬላችኋለሁ እኔ መጽሐፍ የምትፈልጉ ከሆነ ላይብረሪ ጄኔሲስ ላይ ዳውንሎድ ማድረግ ትችላላችሁ አቆጣላችሁ ነው ስለዚህ ሰላም ደሩ
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ MBA በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ MSc በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።